Greetings, friends. You're on the Ruslan Belov channel, and today we'll discuss the situation in Ukraine as of March 30th, 2025. A tremendous number of events have occurred today, so let's get started. Before we begin, I'd like to sincerely ask you to subscribe to the channel. Your subscription helps support its growth. Thank you to everyone who has already subscribed. Let's start with Chassive Ya. Over the past night, there have been no new adjustments. Let me remind you that yesterday, the Ukrainian Armed Forces, AFU, made their first attempts to counterattack, and in some areas they were quite successful. Next, we move to Toretsk. Here, the Russian army continues clearing the settlement. Today, footage of objective control was released, showing FPV drone strikes on Russian assault troops moving on motorcycles from the Zabalka neighborhood toward the settlement of Shevchenko. Based on this footage, there has been a slight adjustment to the map in this area. Several fields, tree lines, and strongpoints have come under the control of Russian units. We can see that the Russian army is gradually tightening the noose around Ukrainian formations located in the western part of the Zabalka neighborhood. A bit further south, the Russian side has improved its positions toward the settlements of Valentinivka and Sukabalka. Let me remind you that yesterday, according to a report from the Russian Ministry of Defense, the settlement of Pantelemonivka came under full Russian control. Today, we are seeing additional advances by Russian units towards Sukabalka and Valentinivka. Next, we move to the Pakovsk sector of the front. Despite this salient being a major problem for Ukrainian units, and despite the AFU making possibly hundreds of counterattack attempts since February, the Russian army is holding its defenses firmly. Moreover, the Russian army is continuing its offensive, and today, based on objective control footage published by the Ukrainian side and various map analysts, the settlement of Uspanivka has come under full and confident Russian control. Ukrainian units were forced to retreat westward toward the settlement of Novoalexandrivka. It's possible that within the next 48 hours, the Russian Ministry of Defense will confirm this information. Now, let's move to the Novopavlivka direction, where the Russian armed forces have effectively broken through AFU defenses, forcing the Ukrainian army to retreat significantly westward. The offensive in this sector began on March 27, 2025. Here's how the map looked by the end of March 27th. By the end of March 28th, Russian forces had advanced significantly in the fields between Yaseneve and the settlement of Andriivka. Initial reports also emerged that Russian units had managed to breach AFU defenses and enter the southern outskirts of Bodanivka. This information about the breakthrough near Bodanivka was later confirmed by the end of March 29th. Reports of a breakthrough in AFU defenses near Kotlyarivka were also confirmed. Regarding this breakthrough, the AFU even published an entire video in which Ukrainian units claimed to have repelled the attack. During this assault, a massive amount of equipment was used, a huge number of tanks, and we can see that the Russian side attacked on a broad front, preventing Ukrainian units from concentrating drones on a single sector. Effectively, a large amount of Russian armor managed to reach the landing point, deploy troops, and possibly even establish a foothold, though confirmation on consolidation is still pending. By the morning of March 30th, more detailed information about yesterday's offensive emerged. We can see that the attack was not only directed toward Novopavlivka, but also toward Kotlyarivka. In fact, Kotlyarivka is now semi-encircled by Russian forces from both the east and south. There is also objective control footage confirming the presence of Russian units in the settlement of Preobrazhenka. This strike was again launched from the direction of Nadivka. To summarize the Novopavlivka direction, only a few settlements near the border remain under AFU control. Just two settlements are under firm Ukrainian control: Hrihorivka and Troitske, two border villages right on the front line. Bodanivka, fighting is ongoing for the southern part. Russian forces have managed to gain a foothold and consolidate. Preobrazhenka, reports today indicate Russian troops have entered the western part. Kotlyarivka, the settlement is being pincered. Out of 5 key settlements, active fighting is underway in 3, and Ukrainian forces maintain a presence in only 2. Solely because Russian units haven't reached them yet. We can see that the fighting in the Novopavlivka direction is entering its final phase. It's possible that within the next week, the Russian army could reach the border of Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. A bit further south, the Russian side is advancing in the Bhhatier direction. The main fighting and news are coming from the settlement of Rozliv. Let me remind you that just yesterday, the pro-Ukrainian mapping service Deep State made a very interesting and strange adjustment to the front line, showing a pocket of resistance in the very center of the village. According to pro-Ukrainian sources, the Russian army breached Rozliv's defenses, pushed into the central part, and entrenched itself, preventing Ukrainian units from maneuvering or restoring the integrity of their defensive line. After Russian airborne troops secured the center, the main army gradually ground down Ukrainian defenses from the eastern part of the village. By the morning of March 30th, reports emerged of a sizable Russian foothold in the northeastern sector of Rozliv. This information comes from both neutral and pro-Ukrainian map analysts. As for pro-Russian sources, they claim that as of March 30th, about 60% of Rozliv is under firm Russian control. Ukrainian forces maintain a presence only in the western and northwestern parts. However, if the pro-Russian reports are confirmed, the Ukrainian army will soon be forced to retreat not just from Rozliv, but also from Konstantinovka, falling back toward Bhhatier. This would mark the end of fighting for these two villages, and the next phase would involve direct assaults on Bhhatier itself, both from the east and via an enveloping maneuver from the west and southwest through Otradivka, where Russian units are already making gradual advances in the fields. In short, the situation here is extremely difficult for the AFU, and they have so far been unable to stabilize the front line. Now, let's shift back north to the Kupiansk direction, where a lot of important developments are unfolding. We'll start with the old Kupiansk salient, the pocket east of the Kupiansk agglomeration. Today, objective control footage surfaced showing Russian troop movements in the fields north of Stepova Novoselivka. Based on this, most map analysts have updated their maps. Some had previously noted a grey zone of uncertainty here, but today geolocation confirmed Russian advances. We can see that the Russian army is gradually closing the distance to Pavlivka and the Kupiansk agglomeration from the east. The most interesting news, however, comes from the Oskil River bridgehead, where the Russian armed forces continue their offensive, aiming to encircle Kupiansk and push Ukrainian forces out of the village. The offensive in this sector also began on March 27th. Here's how the map looked by the end of that day. By the morning of March 28th, the Russian Defense Ministry confirmed that Krasnopershi had come under full Russian control. Throughout March 29th, the main fighting revolved around Krasnopersha and the forested areas of Zalizne Persha and Zalizne Druha. By the end of March 29th, Russian forces had improved their positions in Zalizne Druhe, and by the morning of March 30th, reports confirmed that both Zalizne Persh and Zalizne Druha were under full Russian control. More importantly, Russian troops managed to cut the main supply route, the only paved road leading into Kupiansk and further west toward Kolodezne. This is a significant advance, and the severing of this road has been confirmed primarily by neutral and pro-Russian sources. Pro-Ukrainian analysts have not yet acknowledged it. Meanwhile, the Russian army is advancing rapidly between Kupiansk and Topoli, also on the Ukrainian-held side of the Oskil River. According to various map analysts, Russian forces have significantly expanded their zone of control in this sector, clearly aiming to encircle Kupiansk and force Ukrainian troops out. At the moment, Ukrainian units still have a narrow supply route running from Kupiansk through rural dirt roads toward Dvorochanske. But given the pace of the Russian advance, there is a very high probability that within the next 48 hours, the AFU will be forced to abandon Kupiansk and fall back to more defensible positions. Just before we started recording this video, footage from the vicinity of Kindrashivka came in, allowing us to update a large section of the front line that had previously remained a grey zone on the map in terms of Russian control. Based on the footage, it appears that Russian forces have already entered the settlement, and fighting is now taking place inside the village. Kindrashivka is located right next to Kupiansk, so it's quite obvious that in the near future, we may see the start of battles for Kupiansk itself. Next, we move to the Sumy direction, starting with the Belgorod sector of the front line. Today, Russian sources published footage from the area of Demidovka. Let me remind you that most pro-Russian experts and sources insist that Demidovka and Popivka have been fully cleared by Russian troops. However, as of March 30th, we continue to receive objective control footage, confirming that the AFU still maintains a pocket of resistance in these two settlements. In the footage, we can see Krasnopol guided artillery strikes targeting farms in the very center of Demidovka. You can easily identify these farms both in the images and on the map, meaning Ukrainian forces are still present in parts of Demidovka, and fighting continues. As for the Sumy direction overall, over the past 24 hours, the Russian army has managed to expand its zone of control, consolidate new positions, and footage has also been released from Pavlivka. In this video, we can see Russian soldiers raising their flag in the central part of the village. Let me remind you that a few days ago, the Russian Ministry of Defense confirmed the full clearing of Pavlivka, though without releasing objective control footage. Today, however, that footage has been published, leaving no room for doubt. The only remaining settlement in this sector is a small village called Oleshnya, where the Ukrainian army has deployed units from the 41st Mechanized Brigade and the 80th Air Assault Brigade in an attempt to stabilize the front line and prevent a potential breakthrough toward the Ukrainian state border. Given these developments, we should expect intensified fighting here in the near future. That's all for now, dear friends. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel, leave your likes, and take care. Until next time.